Hello students, so we are back with another video. So in this video we are going to discuss about consumer equilibrium by indifference curve analysis. Okay, so previous video we already did with the marginal utility analysis. So today we are going to discuss about the consumer equilibrium by indifference curve analysis. So consumer equilibrium, as you all know, it refers to a situation in which the consumer derives maximum satisfaction with no intention to change it and subject to the given prices and his given income. Okay, so like it is a point of rest or a point of balance where consumer is getting the maximum satisfaction, and whatever be the income, with the given income and the given prices, the consumer is all satisfied, the consumer is getting the maximum satisfaction, and the consumer doesn't want to move out of this point. So the point of maximum satisfaction is achieved by studying the indifference map and the budget line together. So in this indifference curve analysis, so in order to understand about the consumer equilibrium, so we will understand the consumer equilibrium by studying the indifference map and the budget line together. So on an indifference map, as you know, indifference map is a family of the indifference curve, isn't it? So on an indifference map, higher indifference curve represents higher level of satisfaction than any lower indifference curve. So a consumer always tries to remain at the highest possible indifference curve subject to his budget constraint. Okay, so higher indifference curve gives higher satisfaction. So the consumer always tries to attain the highest possible indifference curve given, but here the given criteria will be subject to the budget constraint. Okay, so the condition of the consumer equilibrium are, so the condition for understanding the consumer equilibrium by indifference curve theory must meet the following two conditions. So the first condition is MRS XY. So MRS, marginal rate of substitution, XY is equals to ratio of prices, that means PX by PY. So the first condition, MRS XY should be equals to PX by PY. So here the two goods X and the two goods be X and Y. So the first condition is this. So this is the equilibrium condition. So what if this equilibrium is disturbed, isn't it? If first we will discuss the first case of if MRS XY greater than PX by PY. It means that to obtain 1 unit of X, the consumer is willing to sacrifice more units of Y as compared to what is required in the market. So if the consumer is, that means consumer is willing to sacrifice more of Y. That means the consumer is consuming more of X, isn't it? So it induces the consumer to buy more of X. As a result, MRS will fall and continue to fall till it become equal to the ratio of the prices and the equilibrium is established. Okay, so if MRS XY is greater than PX by PY, that means consumer is consuming more of X and less of Y. So if the consumer is consuming more of X, then the MRS will fall and continue to fall till again the equilibrium is restored. So another point is, if MRX XY is less than PX by PY, it means that to obtain 1 unit of X, the consumer is willing to sacrifice less unit of Y. So what the consumer is doing? Consumer is sacrificing less unit of Y. That means a consumer wants to consume more of Y. So as the consumer consuming more of Y, then the MRS will rise. So MRS will rise and it will rise up to the point till the equilibrium is established. Okay, so if the condition is MRS XY equals to PX by PY, if any situation, if the equilibrium is disturbed and if it not happens to be MRS equals to, if any situation MRS not equals to, then by various adjustment the consumer will again come back to the equilibrium point, MRS XY equals to PX by PY. So the first condition is this. Second condition is MRS continuously fall. The second condition for the consumer equilibrium is that MRS must be diminishing at the point of equilibrium. That is, the indifference curve must be convex. So the main reason for the convexity of the indifference curve is MRS is diminishing. Okay, so this thing we have already discussed. So unless MRS continuously fall, the equilibrium cannot be restored. So for the restoration of equilibrium also, MRS should continuously fall. So the two conditions. So these are the two conditions necessary for the consumer to be in equilibrium according to the indifference curve analysis. After that, Okay, sorry. After that, we will understand that we will understand this consumer equilibrium with the help of the indifference curve and budget line. Okay, so if you refer this diagram or the figure 2.12, there this is the consumer equilibrium by indifference curve approach. Okay, so in this figure, IC1, IC2, IC3 are the three indifference curve and AB is the budget line. So given this budget constraint or the budget constraint of budget line, the highest indifference curve which a consumer can reach is IC2. But as we know that from one property of the indifference curve, that higher indifference curve give higher satisfaction. So that means the consumer would be getting more satisfaction from IC3. But here is a budget constraint because the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve IC2 at point E. Okay, so given that budget constraint, the consumer cannot move from above it. Okay, so this is the point of consumer equilibrium where the consumer is purchasing OM quantity of commodity X and ON quantity of commodity Y. So any point on the budget line to the left or to the right of E will lie on the lower indifference curve. So that the IC3 will be also be lower for the consumer and IC1 will be lower for the consumer, because the maximum satisfaction the consumer can get is with the IC2 where there is a constraint of budget line. Okay. So in this case, the consumer will be in equilibrium at point E, where your IC2 is tangent with the budget line AB. Okay, so as a budget line can be tangent to one and only one indifference curve, so the consumer maximizes his satisfaction at point E when both the condition of consumer equilibrium are satisfied. So in this point E, both the condition MRS XY equals to PX by PY and MRS continuously fall. So both these conditions are fulfilled at this point E. Okay, so we will see that if MRS equals to ratio of prices PX by PY, so at tendency point E, the absolute value of the slope of indifference curve, because you know that the slope of indifference curve is MRS and that of the budget line is the price ratio PX by PY. So at this point, these two are equal. So equilibrium cannot be restored at any other points where MRS XY greater than PX by PY and any point to the left of E, that is MRS XY less than PX by PY. So equilibrium is established at point E when MRS XY equals to PX by PY. So, and the second condition, MRS continuously fall, the second condition is also satisfied at point E as MRS is diminishing at point E, that is IC2 is convex to the origin at point E. So given the budget constraint, the consumer will be getting maximum satisfaction at this point E, where your IC2 is convex with the tangent with the budget line AB. Okay, so this is the consumer equilibrium by the indifference curve analysis. Okay, so this is all about the chapter 2 consumer equilibrium. So with this video we come to the end of the chapter 2 as well.